This is Florian Birkmayer MD from AromaGnosis, and I wanted to share some of my thoughts about different ego defenses and how to recognize them. And the reason this is important is that when we start working on ourselves, the ego actually throws up defenses to kind of keep us from changing, to keep us from evolving. And the natural inclination, the sort of instinctual ego maintaining pattern is to say, oh, that makes me uncomfortable. I'm not going to go there. And I'm reminded of like when you get a notification on your smartphone saying, are you ready for a new system update? And there's always that part that says, oh, I'm not sure, I'm not ready, I want to change. And so again, if we remain unconscious, the habit is to say, well, these feelings are coming up, the feelings we're going to talk about in a minute. And then we either sort of consciously or unconsciously avoid the direction of change. And the invitation is actually, when we become aware of these ego defenses, to move in the direction of what makes us uncomfortable. This is kind of, we have to overcome our natural instinctual tendency to want to avoid and say, this is making me uncomfortable. That's exactly the direction I need to go in. And that's important so that we can continue to receive the gifts from the unconscious. So one of the early, most common ego defenses is to say, oh, this is stupid or not important or not interesting. End of story. That's not interesting. I don't want to do that. Unless we recognize that as saying, what is it that's making my ego throw up this defense? We're never going to explore it. And then the ego being the sort of the power that wants us to not change, to not grow, to keep everything the same, has already won. Another ego defense that's quite common is fear, to say, oh, that makes me uncomfortable. I don't like feeling that. That's the old, on the maps, before we had a map of the complete world, the old map makers would write, this way is where the monsters are. So in a way, when that fear comes up, again, it's a clear sign that the ego has a hunch. If I explore this, it means I'm going to change. It's scary. I don't want to go there. Again, instead of reacting instinctively to the fear, saying, that makes me uncomfortable. That makes me scared. What is it that's making me so scared? Now, another ego defense is sort of this idea, oh, it's too late. Oh, I've done all this work on myself, or I haven't, and now it's too late. Again, a brilliant way the ego tries to convince us not to grow. It's too late. What could you say? And the truth is, it's never too late. So again, when we feel that feeling, oh, it's too late, recognize it. Instead of saying, okay, it's too late, I'm not even going to bother, say, why is my ego throwing up that defense? What's underneath that? What's coming up for me? Another ego defense, I can certainly relate to that, is this, oh, I'm tired. It's sort of like, I wonder where it comes from. I'm wondering if it's from little kids when we get really excited and then some parental figure says, quiet, shut down. And I think it's also related to like even the word depression. Sometimes when people feel depressed, one of the ways to deconstruct that is to say, well, what are you depressing? Or in a way, how are you depressing? And one way we're depressing is when our soul comes knocking and there's that taste of life force. One way the ego tricks us into really listening to our soul is to say, oh, I'm tired, I don't have energy for this. Of course, a related one is often saying, well, I'm really busy with this stuff. The ego to-do list in our head that never ends. And so I don't have energy for this other thing that my soul is demanding of me. Now, one that's related to this feeling too late, tired, is a new one that I just sort of came across, and I realized it's an ego defense, and that's, I think, this drive to be productive. Sometimes people say, I really haven't been productive. I feel like I've wasted all this time. And again, when we grow, when we listen to our soul, it's frustrating to the ego. In a way, that's what we recognize when we talk about the alchemical stages. Each alchemical stage frustrates the ego in a different way. So I think one way the ego then throws up a barrier is this, you've wasted all this time. You really should be further along. You really need to do stuff. And again, that's the ego in a subtle way trying to regain control instead of sort of surrendering to the process. I really like that line in Dante's Divine Comedy, in the middle of life, I walked into a dark forest. There's this quality of wandering, of sort of not knowing what we need to do, of sitting with our uncomfortable feelings in a very unproductive way, the ego would say. So when this feeling comes up, oh, you've wasted all this time, you haven't been productive, I invite you to say, that's an ego defense. What is happening? What is my soul inviting me to do in this unstructured non-planning, non-productive way that is making my ego throw up this defense of, oh, you've wasted all this time and you're not being productive. The other one that I just thought about is really when we constantly try to interpret what's going on, when we try to sort of psychoanalyze ourselves, that can be lethal, really. Jung himself, when he wrote the Red Book, once he started intellectually analyzing what was happening, it really extinguished the flame of creativity. So I think that when we have a dream, it's important to think, what does it mean to honor the message from the unconscious? But when we interpret it too quickly or too definitively, I think we squelch that flame. The same with when feelings come up, with discomfort comes up. I would even sort of, I haven't really thought about it, but we do that to other people sometimes. Oh, this is why you're doing this. And I think that can really kill the opening from the soul, is when we interpret, when we say, oh, you're doing this because of that, because of this trauma or this transgenerational pattern. I think it's important to be aware of it, but not use that as an ego explanation. So the ego once again says, oh, I know what's going on here. This is why you're doing this, or this is why I'm doing this, or this is what this dream means. Again, I think in a subtle way, that can extinguish the flame or the source of energy from the unconscious. So these are just quickly a few different ego defenses. What I invite you to do is sort of look at the things where you feel that's not interesting, or that's not important, or things that scare you, or when the feeling comes up, oh, it's too late, or the feeling, I'm tired, I don't want to do this, or this feeling like, oh, I haven't been productive, or, oh, I know what's going on, this is my interpretation of the situation. Look at all those and go beyond them. Say, wait a minute, ego, I'm not going to habitually, instinctively, unconsciously react and avoid that. I'm going to look at what's making me uncomfortable in these ways. And then the ego, as many people have said, the ego is an excellent servant but a terrible master. So use these ego defenses as an invitation to dig deeper. And in fact, maybe in the comments below you can talk about ego defenses you've come across. I know I keep adding to the list, and again, this is not the same as the list of classic ego defenses like reaction formation and et cetera, but obviously there you could see how those relate too. So yeah, let me know what you think and talk to you again soon.